What's up guys, Ollie here. So I've been designing for around 7 to 8 years now. I design websites and apps and other related things like that. I know a lot of you already know that I design for a living, and a lot of you ask questions, design related questions. I wanted to do a video on sort of the 5 mistakes that I see, because I see a lot of people send me their design work. They want some criticism on it. They want some feedback. They want to see what I could give them basically. So I wanted to do a video on sort of the 5 common mistakes that I see a lot of designers make. Right, so I've got my MacBook in front of me. So the first one is fonts. So I think fonts is a big mistake that many designers make when they first start off. You know, you never ever want to use the default fonts that you get on your computer, whether it be a PC or a Mac. The best place to start is Google Web Fonts. I mean, they have so many fonts, and every single one of these fonts are for free. And the great thing about them is, you know, if you make websites or apps or whatever, you can also integrate them for free into your website or app. So Google Web Fonts is a no-brainer really. As you can see, there are like 821 font families, and a lot of these fonts come in different weights as well. So you can go from fonts which are like really thin to fonts which are really bold. It's a great way to just explore with different fonts. Never ever use the default fonts that you have on your Mac or PC. Okay, so the second one is line height. So I see a lot of designers make this mistake. So as you can see, I've got Sketch up open in front of me. I've got 2 sort of like columns of text. On the left is the default line height that you get with this font that I'm using. Lots of fonts are different, you know, every font will be different basically. Every font will have a different line height. But as you can see on the right, I've increased the line height for the paragraph, and that makes a ton of difference when it comes to readability. So, you know, the paragraph on the left looks really quite compact and dense. It's quite difficult to read. It's not very easy on the eye. But the column on the right is so much easier to read. There's nice spacing between the lines, and it makes such a difference. I see so many designers make this mistake. Do not make this mistake. It's a very simple one to fix. Number 3 is stock imagery. I see so many people make this mistake, and it's also quite annoying because standard stock imagery is so ugly. It's just so hideous. I don't understand why people use it. Don't go to websites like Shutterstock and these other sort of websites, because their stock photography is just so bad. So there is one major website that I always recommend for stock photography, and that's Unsplash. Unsplash has so many great images. There are thousands upon thousands of images that photographers have just given away for free. This is a no-brainer sort of resource. Like, you don't want to use a standard stock photography. You want to go to a website like Unsplash. Most of the photos on here are very lifestyle pictures. They're sort of natural looking pictures. They're not forced like standard stock photography. And there's so many pictures, you'll be hard pressed to find something that you don't like. Now the 4th one is learning how to use white space. White space isn't something you can just learn overnight. You kind of learn it as you design more and more. But I wanted to show how important white space actually is when it comes to everyday design. So as you can see in Sketch here, I've got an article basically, and you know, it just looks a mess. You know, the image isn't aligned. It's not taking up the full page. The text goes all the way across. There isn't much spacing between the text and the images and all the other paragraphs. You know, it doesn't look very good basically. And you know, if you code or if you do websites or anything like that, this is what a website will look like when you first start coding it. It will just look quite a mess. But then, you know, once you start adding white space like I've done here, as you can see, I've added spacing around the image. I've added spacing above it. I've centered the image. I've also added space below the image. I've also compressed all the text, so it's a certain width, so it's easier to read basically. There's also space between the paragraphs, and the paragraphs are a lighter color, which also makes it easier to read. So as you can see, you know, white space makes such a big difference. When I put them side to side, the one on the right just looks so much easier to read, so much more appealing to the eye. As I said, white space isn't something you can just learn overnight. It takes a lot of practice. Over time you sort of build a style of white space. Everyone has their own different style of white space. So this is a very quick one. It's not sort of pixel perfect. Now the 5th one and the final one is not learning beyond what you already know. I know a lot of designers who sort of stick to one program and they stay within it. They don't expand their knowledge, which is a big mistake to make. You know, you don't have to like learn how to code or anything if you're a designer. You don't have to do anything like that. But I just mean in the sense of, if you're designing, say, a mobile apps or something like that, it's definitely worth learning, say, Framer, which is a sort of prototyping tool which makes you do animations, or even After Effects, which you can animate as well. You know, things like that really kind of push you as a designer. They'll put you above a lot of other designers, and it's just always a really good thing to know more stuff, to know more skills. You know, you don't want to be locked down to one program and only knowing one thing, and then you see all these other designers sort of excelling ahead, going ahead, whilst you're still stuck doing the same thing. You always want to be expanding your skills. You always want to be doing better, which I think is very, very important. You know, I think a lot of people get used to the thing of, oh, they've been to school, they don't need to learn anymore, which is a huge mistake. After school, you should always be learning. You should always be learning new things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've learned something. These were just sort of like 5 quick mistakes that I see a lot of designers make, beginners make. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video.